11. This statement presents the financial condition of the district as a whole and is prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting using the economic resource measurement focus. Basically, that just means that all the assets and the liabilities of the district are included. The second statement is the statement of activities, which is found on page 12. This statement presents direct expenses and program revenues for each function of the district's activities. The net amount then shows the extent to which each function is either self-financing or draws from the general revenues of the district. This is also presented on the full accrual basis of accounting. Because there are differences between these bases of accounting used in the fund and the government-wide statements, there are reconciliations on pages 14 and 17 that reconcile total fund balance to the total net position and the change in fund balance to the change in net position. As always, the report gets lengthy with all the required disclosures and statements, so we always encourage you to read management's discussion and analysis. This provides an overview and analysis of the district's financial activity for the year as prepared by management. For just some highlights, for the year ended June 30th, 2021, the district ended with a total fund balance of $340.8 million. That's on page 13, which is an increase of approximately $15.3 million over the prior year. And the unassigned fund balance at year end was approximately $318.2 million. On a government-wide basis, the district ended the year with a net position of approximately $12.4 million, which is a decrease of $1.2 million from the prior year. Neither of those are the financial statements themselves. I guess they're the, looks like they're the, maybe the top one, special district, and go down one more, or yeah, right, that blue kind of at the very top, is that the one, financial statement draft?
Yeah.
So that would be, I assumed you all had gotten your copy. I know, we've gotten some comments back, so that would be the statements that I was just referring to.
Were you done with your PowerPoint, Janice?
No, that was just on the financial statements. If you could go back to the PowerPoint, there's just a few more reports I'll address, and then we can take questions. If you go to the next slide, please. The second report we issue is a report to those charged with governance, which is a required communication at the conclusion of the audit. This report involves various items, but some of the more significant includes the fact that it acknowledges that there are estimates integral to the financial statements, and the more notable estimates include the liabilities for compensated absences and liabilities related to self-insurance, the allowance for delinquent and protested taxes, unbilled receivables, and the liabilities related to OPEB and pension obligations, which are actuarially determined. It also addresses whether or not there were any material corrected misstatements or any uncorrected misstatements identified during the course of the audit, which there were not. It again mentions the emphasis of the matter paragraph I already spoke about. With respect to required supplementary information, we made inquiries of management regarding the methods to prepare that information to ensure that it was compliant and consistent, but we do not audit that information. And with respect to the additional supplementary information, we made inquiries of management to evaluate the form, content, and methods of preparing the information to ensure consistency and compliance. We compared and reconciled it to the underlying accounting records. This last report then, here's the report on internal controls. We did not identify anything that we determined to be a material weakness or significant deficiency, but we did include some observations and related recommendations. These items have been discussed with management in more detail, but they include suggestions related to the support maintained for transportation statistics, as well as new guidance on leases that will now finally be implemented after the pandemic kind of pushed that back to fiscal year 2022. Now that is the end of my presentation. Any questions on anything related to the audit or the reports that we've issued?
Yeah, Janice, the lease statement is that going to convert some of the, what are now operating leases into capital leases?
Exactly. Basically, in the layman terms now, although they will be using different words and called different things, it's exactly what it does.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the report or?
Well, I have a question. This is probably for Jeff, but whoever wants to take it. Question about the debt service fund. It's showing a negative ending fund balance. It looks like no revenues came into that fund during the year. Only, payments were made. Is that correct?
Into the debt service fund?
Yeah, if you look at I'm looking at page 15 and 16.
Okay.
Usually, and Rich can chime in here, but usually, districts typically have, at least 1 year's worth of debt service payments there. You're allowed to have the current year's and the next year's payment there.
Okay.
That's the facilities authority. So if you go,
Keep scrolling down, Amy. What page was that, Joyce?
Well, I'm looking at page 16 that's showing a negative, but I guess Jenny, you're saying it's just a
16
straight-
on the
it's a-
statements.
It's a transfer.
yeah, if you go down to page 60 on the PDF 66.
On the financial statements?
Mm-hmm. It shows the combining of the district and the facilities authority.
And I don't have last year's in front of me, but does that typically have a negative fund balance?
I believe it did last year.
It actually, back on page 16, Joyce, you can see the beginning fund balance of a negative 6794. So yes, it does typically have a negative.
Okay, I must not have noticed that last year. You just try and run it as close to sort of zero as possible?
We do a transfer for the payments. I believe the negative is mainly coming from the prior year. What I can see.
Yeah, I forgot these were lease revenues, not GOs, so that makes sense. It's on the corporation side.
Mhm.
But still, I'm not exactly sure why it's a negative.
Jennifer, do you know off the top of your head, does the ASBR show zero for the debt service fund?
It shows it is not the debt service fund is not on the ASBR
Okay.
because it's the facilities authority. It's not on special school districts books.
Okay.
Yeah, the ASBR shows revenue in for Fund 4. And then revenue out, of course, for the expenditures.
Mm-hmm. The debt service fund, Fund 3 there's zero in for the ASBR.
Yep, and that's correct.
Hey, I got a different question if it's okay to ask now.
You're the chairman.
Oh, you're on mute, Mark.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. I didn't know if anybody heard me on the early one, but getting back to that lease question, I had to step out for a second, so I apologize if you already answered this, but do we know what I guess we got to gross up the asset side and the liability side for the impact of the leases, but have we done that yet, or do we know what that impact is?
No, we are, well, we're in the, oh, go ahead.
We're in the process of looking at lease software in order to use to calculate all that.
Got it.
I think, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, John is looking at 2 or 3 different packages this week that we can look at to get that going so we can input it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do an RFP for it.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
And then my other question was, the questions that I guess Rich raised yesterday on some of the MD&A discussions or what have you, or Rich, did you get satisfactory answers to that or?
Not on the national economy, because it said national economy growth is slow, and that's certainly not the case. I think Joyce and Mark would.
Yeah, that one, hey, Jeff, I would probably maybe modify that a little bit. It's,
Okay.
It's not where it was maybe in 2019, but it definitely, it took a dip and then now it's working its way back up. So yeah, that's a good point. And then the other, I guess that question on the commercial paper, I guess we're okay there. My only thought there is commercial paper, that's unsecured, is that right? Or
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay. So then the only question there, I guess, is, are you comfortable with, and I know you like inside that 50% in commercial paper, you're diversified within brokers, wherever, the people you're dealing with. And I guess we're comfortable with that versus being in a secured position via, MOSIP or bank CDs.
Yeah, with it being diversified and with it being spread out with the different maturity dates, I am comfortable with that right now, as long as it doesn't exceed that 50% over the policy. That's something we'll continue to look at, though. We just approved the other night the possibility. Right now we have, we can go with UMB, we can go with Commerce, we can go with a couple other brokers, MOSIP being one of them. MOCAT is involved now in the state of Missouri. And so they just now this year, kind of like a MOSIP. So we started talking to them. We had board approval to explore some other options as well. So it just gives us another vehicle for investment there.
All right. And then I guess my only other question related to that, and I'm sorry if it was in here, I didn't see it, but what's the rate you get on the commercial paper versus, and I know what the MOSIP rates are because we compete with those guys on some stuff, but what do you get on commercial paper?
Anywhere between, right now we're going to have between 8.5 to 16 basis points, whereas like the MOSIP is 4.75 right now or 4.51. And some of that liquid stuff as well is pretty low. So that's why we're comfortable right now with putting it in the commercial paper, because that gets us just a little bit more return on our investment, which really isn't out there right now, as you guys know.
One last point on the management discussion analysis at the very end where it gives Jennifer's name, there's a typo. Her first name is lowercase j, and should be uppercase J.
Boy, that brings back old memories when I used to work with Rich years and years ago. he still has the eagle eye.
Some habits are hard to break, huh?
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
it's faded from around.
I've got a question regarding slide 4 on the PowerPoint. In the report to those charged with governance, one of your bullet points is to the use of estimates, acknowledging the use of estimates. How safe is that? How are there reasons to be concerned about use of estimates?
It would be impossible to pull together financial statements without using some estimates. The estimates that the district uses are commonplace for any district. I mean, the things I noted as being the most significant is it would be the same thing I would say in this situation at any of the districts we audit. I mean, those are the things that are going to have to be estimated. So, I mean, it's brought to your attention because of course they are estimates and they're not known. And so there is some possibility they're not right, but there's no other way to get a good reporting without making some estimates.
And a lot of those estimates, Janice, are based on historical trends, right?
Right. I
then-
mean, our audit procedures are to understand the methodology behind it, any kind of support that can be given to it, like historical trends, or as I mentioned, a lot of them are based on actuarial information that comes from a third party. So it's getting a comfort over the methodology to make sure there's no bias being displayed in there, or maybe information that's being put to the side that would contradict something. I mean, those where our procedures are to try to make sure they're as accurate and as well-rounded in estimates as they can be.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I'll comment on that a little bit. We, being in banking, same thing goes on in our industry. We have to come up with estimates for various different reserve positions and those type of things. So it's typical. You just hope they're, reasonable and reliable.
And another part of the audit, another step is a look back to the prior year to see how close estimates were, so that if we get a feeling that management isn't good at estimating or isn't giving, maybe following all the information that they really should. So that's not only looking at what they're doing this year, but a step in audits is to look back to kind of see, how good they are at estimating. Any other questions related to the reports or the presentation or? Okay, well, those are prepared, remarks related to the report, to the reports and the audit.
No, I would say proceed with the next agenda item.
Shouldn't we have something on approving or recommending the financials to the board, to the full board? There.
Does somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion approved.
All right, and then is this the point where Jenny and I and Dr. Keenan jump off and you guys finish up the meeting?
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. I truly appreciate all your support. So,
Sure.
thank you.
All right. Thanks,
All
Jeff.
right, thank you.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all the work on this.